What cheap gaming mouse should I buy and what cheap gaming mouse is worth it are two pretty good questions that I think I probably found the answer to with this video. This mouse is probably the best option for you if you're looking for a budget gaming mouse, and it's under $25 US, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. Now let's get on to the review. Now the first thing we're going to talk about is the features of the mouse. Now there's some pretty interesting things about this mouse. So the first thing is obviously the RGB. Now this is probably the first thing that you see when you take a look at the mouse, and it's actually really good. There's a bunch of different modes that you can switch to using a button on the bottom. One's my favorite, where it just fades between colors because I can match it with my PC. But there's probably going to be an RGB mode for everyone, and the colors look great and they're pretty bright. So that's pretty good. And then there's also these DPI adjustment buttons. It's pretty much just the sensitivity of the mouse. And on this mouse, it has an up button and a down button. Now on a lot of mice that you'll find, it has just one button. You have to keep pressing it and it goes up until it gets to the highest setting, and then it resets to the lowest. And that's pretty annoying in my opinion. So I really like having an up and a down button so you can set it to exactly what you want. So that's definitely a good feature, but I found on my desktop, I just rather have it on the lowest setting all the time. It just seems to work. And then it also has side buttons. Of course, for a gaming mouse, it's got to have side buttons, and so it's pretty helpful. But instead of just having two like you'd normally find, it has three. But there's something that it's pretty weird. It doesn't really affect the mouse that much in like a big way, but there's a third side button and it just acts as a left click button. Instead of being something like an actual extra button that you could bind to something else, it's just the left click button. So that's just something you should expect with this. Even though it shows a third button, you're really only getting the two side mouse buttons. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is how the mouse feels. And in my opinion, it feels really good to hold. It's just the perfect size for my hand. But on the top, it has this material that's really nice, and it's like a really soft, rubbery, like plastic material. I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels really good on your hand. Be careful if you have long nails because you might scratch it, but for me it's just a perfect material and it feels really nice. And then on the sides where your thumb goes on the mouse and where your ring and pinky finger go, it has this really nice textured grippy rubber on the sides, and that feels really good too. And then the rest of the mouse, the part you probably won't be paying too much attention to, is just hard plastic. So overall the mouse feels really good. The way the scroll wheel feels is that it's not really loud or anything. You can just feel the different click. And then also in Fortnite, if you want to do a scroll wheel reset, for that you have to scroll down perfectly 2 times. Now on this mouse you can do that really easily because you can definitely feel each time that you scroll. So that's a really good thing about this mouse. Now the wire is really long and you probably won't be running into too many issues with that. In my opinion, it's just been like longer than I even need it. So I don't think you're gonna have too many problems with the wire not reaching your PC unless you have your PC really far away from your desk. But just for most cases, I think it's gonna work really well. So I don't want to just say that everything is perfect about this mouse because it definitely does have some problems, but they aren't that bad. So the first problem that I think that you might find is annoying is when you move the mouse, you have to lift up pretty far to not actually recognize that you're moving. So I got completely used to this, but when I first got it, compared to my old mouse, there was a bit of a difference and I didn't really like it at first, but overall you'll probably get used to it. And then the next problem, and this is probably the biggest problem you have with it, the mouse buttons on the side are really clicky, and they sound pretty cheap, but they don't feel cheap. So I don't really, when I have a headset on, I don't even notice it, but it's just something to think about. You'll probably find that you won't actually care about it, but it will just seem pretty bad when you first open it, but I don't really care about it. But to give you my final thoughts on this mouse, whether I think you should buy it or not, I'd say you should buy it, because if cheap sounding mouse buttons is enough to make you not buy a mouse even though it's this cheap, I don't know, maybe you want to spend a bit more money. But for the price, this mouse is amazing, and just with the RGB, so I definitely recommend picking this up. I have a link in the description if you want to buy it, so be sure to check that link out and leave a like on this video.